Have you ever noticed that your CS might be a little bit lower than what a high elo AD carry player would have? I have, even in Masters. So in this video I'll be showing you what I did to improve my own CS to try and get it up above 8 CS per minute in every game. So the first thing you have to do, and probably also most important thing, is finding the root of the problem. So this means you have to figure out what is causing you to have lower CS than a higher AD carry challenger player, for example, right? So there can be multiple things going wrong here. Like that could be, for example, that you are just really bad at last hitting. I would probably say this is most likely not it. If you're like at least in some decent elo, like I would say even in gold, people are usually decent at last hitting, so most of the time this won't be it, but maybe it will be for you. So make sure to think about if last hitting might be an issue, and if it is, you can always go into practice tool and try and practice last hitting. For example, with the mini game of playing Soraka, there's some game where you go into practice tool and you go mid lane, and you're basically only allowed to last hit as Soraka, so you're not allowed to manipulate the wave at all. Some people do it with a cull, and then they try and see how fast they can stack the cull. Some people will do it without a cull to make it even harder. That's one way to try and improve the just complete fundamentals of last hitting. And as you guys can see on the screen, I actually went into practice tool myself to try and do this. And if you guys want to try and beat my time, I ended up on 100 CS on 12 minutes and 5 seconds exactly. So good luck, guys. I encourage you guys to try and beat it. And I did start a cull, and I went attack speed in the rune. On the first one, and then the second one I went just damage, and the third one it's a bit irrelevant. I went armor, I think. It doesn't really matter. But that's the runes I went. So yeah, you guys can try and see if you can beat it. Oh, I also actually went alacrity, which might be a bit cheating, but you guys can go the exact same runes if you want to, since you can see them displayed right next to the Soraka icon. But yeah, 12 minutes and 5 seconds. Good luck, guys. I encourage you to try and beat it. But basically what I did, and I knew last hitting wasn't really my issue, considering I'm Masters, I'm pretty confident to say that, was that I used a program called Outplayed. You can even use if I'll show, I can show it here. So you can even use the match history, and you can just go through your games. So for example, you can go into now for me there's no reason to really go into the replay here when I just have all the replays saved up on Outplayed. But basically what you have to do is go into your replays of your game, and then you just click on your games. And then what I would do is I would continuously go to like the 10-minute mark, which is around here. And then I would look at my CS rate. So in this game, I have 61 CS per minute at 10 minutes, which is quite bad, I would say. That's 6 CS per minute at 10 minutes. So that's quite bad. Right. And then I would continuously do this. Now, I think it's my games right now are a bit bad to show because I've been playing Twitch, which is usually not the highest CS champion. This is also something I would take into consideration, by the way. So like, what kind of champ do you play? Like, does he need to have a lot? Like on Twitch, for example, like he's more like of a high kill champ. Like look at my kills, right? So I have 14 kills, 14, 9, had a bad game with 3, 17, 8, and then I had a bad game with 3, right? So it's like Twitch is like a very high kill snowbally AD carry that makes a lot of like roams and stuff. So I feel like he's a bit of an exception, but you should still have a higher CS than I do on him. Like this is probably a champ I should work on right now. I would say I quite recently like picked him up in this season. I haven't really played him before, so I'm still trying to figure out what playstyle I like on him, right? But for example, then I played a lot of Siri. That was actually the one I was going to. When I was going through this myself, I was like, damn, I just can't seem to have 8 CS plus per minute in every game consistently. How do pro players do it? Like, how do they do it? And then I was going to try and one-trick Siri, right? So if you look at my profile here, then I have most played games Siri now, actually. And Siri is also a champ I played. I think I played probably 150 games the last 30 days on her, because I just really enjoy Siri. And then if you look at the overall, then I have 7.7 CS per minute. But if you look at before I viewed the guide, I actually had, I think, 6.7. Like, it was really, really bad. So now, after I played another 150, I have 7.7. So it's been going up. It's still not above 8 because I was really low before. But if you look at the last 30 days, it's also been a bit rough, right? Which is what I was actually not hoping. But I had the 8 CS per minute when I was consistently one-tricking her before she's just been nerfed 3 or 4 times in a row. But before that, and it's still higher. I'm still happy that it's gone up over like 6, right? So I've gone from 6 to 7.8, which I'm still happy about. Like, I'm not ashamed to say that I don't have above 8 on Siri, even though it's my most played champion. But in a lot of my games, I've had above 8 CS per minute. And I had a whole month where I maintained 8.8 CS per minute, I think, on her, while still winning majority of my games, which is also important, and how I do it, because it's not hard to get above 8 CS per minute if you just sit on a side lane the whole game and do nothing, right? So you also want to make sure that you have at least some kind of kill participation. So like I said, Siri has just been nerfed. So I feel like I've been having a little bit of a rough time on her, and that's why I'm going over to Twitch now, because I want to try and swap up my ADC game, because it just seems like this champ gets nerfed every patch, and when she doesn't get nerfed, she gets a hotfix instead, or like an ability change. So honestly, I think I picked the worst champion ever that I would try and one trick, because she's just like getting changed too much for me to get comfortable on her. But yeah, what is really important, and actually another champ that I picked up even more recently was so everyone knows how broken Sivir has been, right, recently. So if we go look at Sivir right here, and we look at what account am I looking? I'm looking at Toppe ADC. Wait, were I looking at Toppe ADC before as well? I don't think I was. So I have Sivir here, right? So Sivir actually has overall 8 CS per minute, and that's because I picked her up I think I had 17 or 16 games on her before I had watched all these videos on how to improve my own CS, which is what I'm gonna take you guys through today. So basically what has happened is, like, if you look at the last 30 days, it's the same, because this is basically just the last 30 days I've been playing her, right? So here you can actually see that I managed to maintain it, but I would also say Sivir is a bit of a champion that's easy to get high farm on, but I have maintained 8 CS per minute plus, and I actually have a pretty high win rate on her as well, which is pretty good. So I feel like something has been working out, and I feel like a lot of the games I'm losing as well, like if you look at the most recent loss, which is actually what I was looking into the most, because I don't think it's hard to have high CS numbers in a winning game, like where your top laner is winning, your jungler is winning, you're getting a lot of free resources from that. But when your team is all around losing, that's where I feel like it's most importantly to be able to pull up your CS game, because that's the games you can 1v9. So if you look at this game, for example, I have had a really hard losing team, and I actually held this in the game for really long. So like my mid laner was struggling a lot. I think my jungler went 0-5 in the beginning, and my top laner was also just dying repeatedly with 14 deaths, and so was my support, right? So I had inting support, I had inting top, and an inting jungle. But I still managed to maintain 9.4 CS per minute in this game. And those are the kind of games that makes me happy, because even though I didn't win the game, I pulled us in this game for so long. If my teammates were a little bit better, we would probably have won the game. I had the most damage by 53,000. And I sat on 9.4 CS per minute. These are the kind of games that if you can consistently play like this in losing games, you're gonna climb. You're just gonna climb. There's no doubt about it. Actually, one of the things I say to my viewers who ask me, "Hey Toppe, how do I reach diamond?" I'll just say, if you can maintain as an AD carry 8+ CS per minute in every game and still have a decent amount of kill participation, you don't have to have like insane amounts. Actually, what I realized is AD carries it's okay to sag a bit of kill participation to get more CS. If you then later on in the game, of course, if you lose the game by not being there, then it's doomed. But if you can, it's all about like making sure you decide which fights you shouldn't go to and which fights you should go to. Because I think a lot of lower elo mistakes is that they will rotate to every fight, and then by the time they get there, your team has either already died or they have already won. And then you can be like, well, if they already won, well, I didn't need to go there. If they already died, then it's like, maybe I should have been there, or maybe I should have pushed out a top lane or bot lane and gotten a tier 2 tower maybe, and gotten a lot of gold. That's something I would start considering more, because that's something that I kind of find out that a lot of pro players do. How to find the root of your problem. So now we kind of know that you should check your game, you should check your reviews. You can do it for if you don't have the Outplayed app, you can just go in your games, right? Go in your games, download the replay, and go to 10 minutes and see on average. I would just do like for 10 games maybe, and see on average what is your CS. If it's below 8 CS per minute, then I would maybe start considering watching this first 10 minutes and see where it goes wrong, because I can almost guarantee you if it's not because of your last hitting, then it's because your wave management is either poor or yeah, it's actually that's the only reason I would say. It's just because you have bad wave management, right? So if you're under 8 CS per minute on average in every game, I would say you need to fix your wave management. You probably need to work on your recall timers, because those two kind of go together. So to have good wave management, you need to have good recall timers. And then you also need to know when to push and when not to push. I actually made a video, I think, in this a while back, where I talk about when you should push and when you shouldn't push. So if you want to, you can go watch that. I'm just gonna go through my example of what I went through. So back when I did this experiment, I think around a month ago now, I came to the conclusion that, okay, I was actually maintaining around 8+ CS per minute the first 10 minutes. So my wave management was decent. I seemed to be doing good at this. I wasn't really dying a lot. I wasn't really like, it was just, it was just a clean laning phase for the most of the time, I would say. So then it just came down to, okay, so if it's not before the 10 minutes, it's after. And that's usually where rotations start. So of course I was just insta. And I kind of knew this from the beginning, but now I already confirmed to myself by looking at the games as well that this is my issue. It's rotations. It's one of the hardest things I would say as an AD carry to do, because like it's really confusing where you should be in the map. Like, should I be mid lane? Should I be bot lane? Should I be taking red buff? Like, where the frick should I be, right? Because there's so many places you can be, but where's the right place to be? Because it's not always the right place to be with your team at all times. And that's something I think, as I said earlier, a lot of lower elo players, they make the mistake of just perma grouping as an AD carry. But what I kind of found out, especially on scaling champions like Siri, is that if you somehow manage to split a lot and get away with it, yeah, your team might lose a few fights here and there, but if you all of a sudden then come back and you have sat on lane solo, you sucked up all of your jungle camps without making your jungler rage quit, you're gonna come back being 2 to 3 levels up, if not even more. I think the highest I've managed to catch up on level, get ahead in level of enemy AD carry without the enemy AD carry going AFK was like 5 levels just from me splitting and being in the right fights at the right time. So instead of being in every fight, I chose some fights, which also meant that sometimes my team would just get aced and I would be sitting in top lane and I would be maybe getting 2 towers, but they would get aced, right? And we would lose a mid tower or a dragon. And they would ping me and be like, yo, Siri, why are you top lane? And this is where it's like gonna be really hard for some people, because that's where you gotta be like, okay, these 4 people are biased because they're dead, right? So they don't know if you're making the right decision or wrong decision. They could also have made the wrong decision by fighting, knowing you were top lane, right? So it's kind of like, where does the balance go here? Can you be top lane? Is it okay for your team to die? And that's kind of where I found on Siri, it's fine. It's actually fine if your team gets aced, if you're confident enough that you'll 1v9 later on. So one of the things I would do a lot, and this is not something I recommend people do, but something I did that I found out worked for me, and I think it's only because it was a scaling champion. Again, like, this is gonna get a bit more advanced, because I think every playstyle comes down to what champion you're playing, right? So you can't just say like, okay, I should also do the splitting thing on a Draven. Probably not a good idea, right? Because he doesn't want to scale. But Siri did. So what I did was I would go maybe top lane and I would try and get 2 towers. And then sometimes my teams would be like, okay, Siri's top lane, we have to give to Drake, which is best case scenario. And sometimes they'd be like, what the fuck's our AD carry doing? We're fighting 4v5 without him. And then they would get aced, which is unlucky, happens. But if I manage to get tier 1 tower plus tier 2 tower, that's a lot of gold, and all the solo waves, and maybe even the jungle camps in the enemy jungle, and maybe I can suck up my own jungle camps on the way back, and then I can reset and get a whole item or something like that, which is something that would allow me to 1v9 the game. So that's kind of how I started turning around my Siri gameplay from being like, okay, I didn't have to... Because I think what was really happening is like I was falling low on CS was because I was over grouping, right? So I was always like, okay, I have to group for this Drake fight, but actually I didn't. And that's something that's important. And if you can like make the push fast enough, sometimes one of the enemies will also go up to you, and then it's just all about not dying, but then your team is going to be fighting 4v4 Drake. So it's all about finding the balance between doing this. Alright, but if you want to know how I came to this conclusion, we can look at some players like Reckless and Upset, because he was playing a lot of Siri when I was playing a lot of Siri. So this is something I would recommend to all of you guys doing now. This is how you really improve you gotta find a pro player who's high challenger. So like for example, Upset is 1000 LP challenger. So you want to find a player who's 1000 LP challenger who's playing the champ you're playing, and then look at them. Like just look at your own gameplay and then look at their gameplay. Where do they manage to catch a lead in CS on you consistently, right? So what is it that's making the difference from you having low CS to them having high CS? So what I would do is I would just go in and I would try and see if there's any available games for rewatching. So now I don't know if there's a program where you can rewatch them from the op.gg, but I just went on the client here. I would go look at the match history, and then I would just look at a game that they have recently played. So let's just take a random game actually. Let's just go through this. So I've been playing a lot of Twitch lately. Let's take a look at Upset Twitch game. But actually, okay, if you want to go a little bit deeper, what I actually did was that I would only select losing games because I was trying to improve CSing, right? So for example, Upset here has 335 minions in 33 minutes, so he has over 10 CS per minute but it's a win, right? So I wasn't really interested in that. So if I really wanted to see it, I would go for games like this, but this game he doesn't have that good CS, so I would even look further down to see if he has like a really high CS game. Like this game he has decent CS, but again, like I was more interested in games so he had even higher. But these are the only games that are right now. So if I were to look at a game, I could go look at this game, for example. And then I would just watch the whole game, basically. Because I wasn't really, you're not really in a rush when you're WOD reviewing. If you're rushing it, I don't think you're going to improve from it. I'm just going to go look at that. This is all I was doing, honestly. I'm just going to be looking at Upset's POV. So I would speed it up, obviously, because I don't really care about the beginning here. I'm just going to see what he does. I'm going to look at what he buys. And also look at his runes. So he's gone Lethal Timber, which is pretty standard rune. And then you would just look at how he plays the lane. But this right here is not really necessarily if you're only looking for the farm, right? But this was just because I was interested in improving my overall champ ability as well when I was playing Siri. So I was also interested in like how he did his trades and how he was playing around in the lane on his champion. Like how was he doing certain trades, right? So that was something I was also interested in. So it's not only CSing, but I was also interested in how to improve the CSing. Or know how to improve the trading patterns on Siri because it was quite new to her. And she kept getting changed, so it was like I wanted to see how a pro would, do with it. So basically we can just see from the one that he starts out with. He starts Q and then he starts going for a little trade with the Galio pushing off the enemy team. But they kind of take recontrol of the lane. So enemy team gets level 2 first. Galio goes in for an engage, and they get a pretty good trade off, I would say. They did use Galio Ignite though. And then I would look like Kai'Sa, she started D-Blade, so now he actually has quite an HP advantage on her already. So he's probably gonna start getting some good health P, CS leads here, by just pushing off the lane. On the next, like I'm assuming they're gonna try, oh my, never mind, his supports get caught there. What I would guess what happened was that they would go for another hard trade on Kai'Sa because she has no potions now, but Galio just straight up gets one shot by Taric when he goes for the. It's pretty smart of Taric though. He actually goes for the stun right as Galio goes for the last hit, and it's just a one shot. Damn. So now I'm curious to see like what Upset will do here, because now his support is dead and his wave is in a pretty weird spot, like it's slow pushing towards enemy team. I'm also curious to see what they will do, because like what will you do in this situation on the winning side? Like will you take the recall here, because you possibly could, but I don't know if it's worth it. Kai'Sa didn't get the kill, so she probably will not take a recall. But will she let the wave push into her, or will she just push it back, So this is also things I would take into consideration. Oh. I want to keep looking at Twitch. So they push the wave and they look for a recall. But they're gonna get stopped here, I think. Nope. But this is a bad recall, I feel like, because now Kai'Sa's just gonna lose the whole wave. I don't know if that was intentional. So yeah, Kai'Sa just loses the whole wave. I would say that's a really bad recall. Okay. I guess Taric freezes and he baits Upset into getting executed. So, okay, I kind of hope you guys get the point. Let's just fast move it. So that's kind of how I would analyze the lane, right? I would just look at every move they make and look at every enemy's move to kind of see like I just want to see how they interact with the current wave states they get, and you know, in the certain matchups they have. But so if you're just gonna move a little bit forward, because I don't want to make this whole video into an analyzing game, then I would go maybe like, let's just go a little bit forward, see where Twitch is going. So now he's moving to top lane. In what wave state? In a slow push towards enemy team. He's moving to top lane. Never mind, it was purple. Alright, so he pushes wave. He has 500 gold. He could go back and buy... Well, I guess he's rushing Blade of the Ruining King. So, I mean, he could buy a Vampire Scepter, but I don't think that's worth. So he's gonna... So instead of going for that, he'll look for a roam mid. But it's just an interesting mid-wave state. Maybe she can beta fight. And they actually end up just getting caught out by the jungler. It's actually a really rough start though for Upset here. He's actually going into lane now with... He's gonna have around 6 CS per minute, I would guess. The first 10 minutes. So that actually means he's catched up quite good, because he ends off with 270 minions in a 30-minute game. So that means he's gonna be catching up quite good in CS later on, which is gonna be pretty important if you want to improve your CS to how to... So it's like, this is like where, you know, it's really important to pay attention, because how is he going to catch up in CS? Because he had such a terrible start in this game. He's 0-3-0. Like, now I'm kind of impressed that he's ending 270 minions in a 30-minute game, because he's done quite a good job catching up in CS. So this could be an interesting game to watch the whole game, but I will not do that, because I don't want to like make the video take 2 hours. But I hope this is giving you guys an idea of what you should do and like how it can help you. Because I do want to mention, actually, like when I did this, it took me around 3 days. I've said for some reason I had 1 month in this season where I was Diamond 1. I was getting really frustrated. I think I was on really bad mental. So I spent probably around 5 to 8 hours, just a whole night with a friend in Discord, just sitting, going through games. I knew my own games because I'd already saved some of them. I already looked some of them. I looked one of my own games first, and then I talked to him about it. What could I have done different? How should I win? I was 10 kilometers ahead and we still lost. And then I looked at like a bunch of pro games of the champion I wanted to learn. And then 3 days after, I managed to climb out a diamond, and I haven't gone down there since then. So I think that says quite a lot. Like, it took me 1 month to be stuck there, just playing endlessly on bad mental. But when I finally said enough is enough, and I went to VOD review myself, and I went to compare my gameplay to pro players, I started climbing really fast. And since then I've been sitting between 100 LP masters and 299, which is kind of annoying. I just want to hit 300, but I just can't. I'm a bit stuck right now. As you probably, if you guys have seen the last video I made, it was also a bit like, I made a plan on how I was gonna do it, but I just can't, bro. I just can't hit Grandmasters. I don't know, like maybe I have to do more intense reviewing of myself. I might have to do that. But yeah, he actually dies again, so now he's 0-4-0. So like, if I had to watch the rest of this game, right, I would pay attention super hard to... I guess we can write it. Do you want to write it down? I kind of want to write it down. So we can use this thing right here. So I would just pay full attention to rotations. Like, how does he gain... Okay, my keyboard is in the wrong language. Sucks. How does he gain CS plus still having impact on the game, right? Because it's important that he still has impact on the game. And he does make quite a good comeback here, see? He went from 0-4-0 to 10-9. 10-9-2. Oh, he did not have a 270 minutes, so he only ended in 242. But it's still decent, like he, compared to starting out 0-4-2, having 37k damage. So he actually ended up being the most impactful teammate starting out 0-4-2. And he did catch up quite a bit on CS. And like I mentioned earlier, Twitch is a lower CS. I'm pretty sure if you look statistically, I think he will have lower CS on average in higher elo than other champions. Because he is like a kind of chaos thriving AD carry champ that goes for a lot of stealth plays. not that I backed this up, so maybe I'm just saying shit out of my ass here, but that's just like when I look at pro players, they usually have a bit lower CS here. But yeah, so what I would be paying attention to in the game is rotations plus equals like how does he gain CS plus how much impact does he manage to have. And clearly he manages to have quite a shit ton of impact in this game, having 37k damage. And then I would also look at like how much like grouping over like objectives. So will he group? How often will he group, and how often will he go for like solo towers or something like that, or group for the Drake? That's also something I'll pay a lot of attention to because I think it's super important. Like rotations is like a big word, but like there's a lot of things like for when to rotate. When does he group? Does he do it when does he sometimes sacrifice grouping for like a solo tower or stuff like that? Like, and then also notice like how many jungle camps will he pick up? / will he delay his recalls to get jungle camps? So he might, have his wave shoved out, but will he go into enemy jungle and try and get more camps, or will he just recall? That's also something I think is really important to look at. So these are like the 3 main things I'll look at. And then it's all about comparing these to my gameplay. So like, let's say at the 10-minute mark, he starts making like rotation. So we saw that he made a push, which is quite common on Twitch. You make a full push and then you rotate mid lane. And sometimes your support will join you, sometimes he will reset. So in this case, the support reset, which actually was the reason they lost the mid play. But it doesn't really, like, you can't really blame him because he knew he was resetting when he was rotating. So it's just like things like that, right? So how often will he like go around and do things like this, where he will like push the wave, reset? Will he run top lane sometimes? That's also something I'm curious about. Something I would probably pay attention to if I had to watch him. Will he run top lane just from base before laning phase is over to try and get a cheese kill? Is that worth doing? That's something you probably would have to watch multiple games to figure out. Is it worth doing it? Because what if it doesn't work? Do you just lose the game then? Have you fucked up too much then? So I think that's really important, to be honest, to look at too. And yeah. Then I obviously mentioned Reckless as well, and I think that's just because I think it's important to look at multiple players and not just the same, to get ideas and inspirations of different playstyles. Because I think if you look at Upset and Reckless, they are almost opposite in playstyle. Like Upset plays super aggressive, like really, really aggressive. And sometimes I would also say, because I watch quite a lot of his games now, he will solely lose the games from making aggressive plays. And that's sometimes he makes a bit questionable plays, and sometimes it's just crazy good plays because he's so aggressive and it'll win him the game. Where Reckless is a bit more passive, he likes to just consistently have high CS and good KDAs and try and win the games through that. Which is important, like having good KDAs and AD carry is actually quite important, because if you don't die, you get XP, and that's often how you end up with a CS lead. And an XP lead. That causes it to be much easier to win team fights. So yeah, guys, this is pretty much what I would suggest you guys do. I hope that this video helped someone out there. I hope it felt useful to watch. I know it was pretty much just me taking it all out in one, because this is basically how I did it. I think the best way to do it, if you want to do it, is do it with someone, because it can be a bit rough to go through all of this shit on your own. So if you have like someone in your own elo range, you could even VOD review like your game with them and then have them give you some impact on what you should have done different. That's something I love doing. And then, if they also would like that, you could, after I help them with the game. So it kind of goes both ways, right? This probably works best though if you're playing the same role, because sometimes I like to do it with people who play mid lane and other lanes or jungle or top, and then sometimes it's a bit weird because they don't know AD carry as good as I do, but I also don't know their role as good as they do. So it's kind of like you're gonna give some. I guess you can get some ideas that you haven't thought of yourself, because you get a different kind of mindset on the run, which can also be good sometimes. So I think just talking with your friends about your games and what reviewing them in a Discord call or something is super helpful. Watching pro players comparing their gameplay to yours, super helpful. If you have like 3 champions, which a lot of people like, if you want to climb I think there's like this 3 champion rule, right? Where it's like you only should have 3 main champs that you play consistently. And then you should just watch pro players who play those champs and then compare those, the way they play the champs, to you. Because you cannot watch a Siri game, right? If you're a Draven main, you will gain nothing from it. You will straight up gain nothing from it. I guess you can watch the matchup of Draven versus Siri and look at how enemy Draven will play versus Siri, but you cannot gain anything from like the rotations and stuff because they're not gonna be the same. They're far from the same. But I think one of the things that, if I just have to say something on the last note here, is that think about minions like consistent income in every game, right? Like getting that cheesy first blood is never consistent, but getting 10 CS per minute can be consistent. It's not possible in every game because it's solo queue and there's a lot of chaos, but you can still have, I would say, consistently 8 CS per minute in almost every game. That's what pro players do. That's what challenger players do. They have almost 8 CS in every game. It's really rare that they don't, actually. And therefore, it's like the most consistent income of gold and XP, and this is usually what leads you to get leads in games. And honestly, if you can have a 8 CS per minute or more in a losing game, that's where you get set up for 1v9 gameplay. And those games I feel so good. I actually have a game where I completely 1v9'd than Siri. Every lane game went like 0-10, but I managed to win the game on my own. And yeah. If you guys would like me to post that on the YouTube channel, please let me know. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I hope you found it helpful. Please feel free to leave a comment if you have any constructive criticism of the video or just anything you want to share. Otherwise, much love, guys. Stay safe.